Okay, so do you remember the first time I walked in your office?
No.
I didn't think you would. All right, so
I remember when you walked out of my office.
yeah, that happened. So it was 2007. You had your little office on the Pioneer. Wait, not Pioneer. Is that the street too?
Marina Valley on Heacock or Frederick and Atlantic.
Atlantic.
The old Pioneer real estate office, for those of you that are familiar with Marina Valley, last 25, 30 years or so.
Is there forever?
Forever. Now we're Coldwell Banker. We were Coldwell Banker Pioneer. Now we're Coldwell Banker Town and Country. But we were Coldwell Banker, I think, when you joined us. So.
We were just transitioning. We're getting that Town and Country story too, because that's interesting, that transition. So I walk in his office and I said, I need your help. They just shut the power off at my real estate office at Realty Executives. I worked with this other agent, Diane Aronoff, who was doing like 20 deals a month at that time. And I said, can we come work with you? And he said, sure, but I can't give you the same split that I can give her because you're young and stupid and she's old and smart, so we'll figure this out. So, but I remember in the back of your office, you had 100 files, and it was in this really interesting category system where they're all in their phases, and it was the one you used last time during the last cycle. And he said, man, I have 100 files. I don't know what I'm going to do. This is crazy. I can't believe I have 100 files. And he was blown away. Now, you had 100 files then, and you had like 4 agents. What happened over the next 3 years?
Well, between 2006 and 2010, I suppose, 2008 being the peak, we had at the top probably just under 600 files. We were getting, if we didn't get an assignment every day, by the way, we're talking in code here, we're talking foreclosure properties, basically Fannie and Freddie and all the ilk there. But if we didn't get an assignment a day, that was weird. On one day, we had 32 assignments in one day. It was insane. And those 600 units were at various stages. You know, it was about a third. We had about a third of them in escrow, a third of them on the market, and about a third of them in some sort of pre-marketing. Not all 600 at a time, but that's kind of where we were at the peak. And then we ended up selling close to 4,000 units in that. Well, actually, we still are doing them, which is kind of weird. You know, there's still inventory out there. There's still Fannie, Freddie, not a lot, but there's inventory out there right now. And
are you getting that influx from those loan mods that are tailing off?
Not really, but the reverse mortgage stuff is kind of interesting. So there's some reverse mortgage inventory out there that seems to, there's some threats that there's going to be more of that on the market. I'm not quite seeing it because I think the banks are not inclined. They're really more inclined if you're a real estate agent or if you're looking for some deals out there. The banks seem to be more inclined to let the estate deal with, or incentivizing the heirs to liquidate the property without basically doing foreclosure stuff.
It's really interesting. I remember talking to Art Acosta about that, and he was like gung-ho that there were going to be thousands and thousands of listings internally, so we're seeing some change in the way the bank looks at that, huh?
I would have probably said the same thing Art said maybe 2 years ago, but I'm just not seeing it. Like I say, the banks seem to be incentivizing, and to me, it's odd because I would think a lot of the relatives, you know, okay, mom just died, grandma just died, they've got this reverse mortgage. You know, if the property's upside down, or if it's anywhere close to upside down, well, what's the point? Just, you know, give it back to Bank of America and let them just deal with it. But it seems as though they're incentivizing the estate to do something, you know. So, but it's interesting. But there's still some REOs out there. But yeah, we had the time, and I do remember that now. I forgot about the utilities being shut off at Realty Executives and all the rest of that sort of stuff. But it's a Marina Valley office, by the way. The Riverside office is fine, and I have a lot of friends over there. But I don't want anybody running out of this room saying, Lance said they shut the utilities off.
I said they shut the utilities off.
Yeah, actually, Steven said that. But yeah, that was an interesting time. Those were 7-day-a-week, 18-hour days. Were not unusual back then.
So at the time I came on, for the most part, you did. What percentage of your business was property management before the REO phase this time?
Probably 50. Which, by the way, you probably didn't see me raise my hand. If you've got a lot, I know most of you, it seem like you're buying and flipping, although it sounds like there's some holders out there in the audience as well. If you don't have the stomach or the desire for property management, we do a lot. We're probably the largest property management company in the Inland Empire. We manage about 1,200 units. Most all of those are single family. We've got some multi-unit stuff. Been doing it for 28 years. Literally, we were joking in the back of the room earlier, I think Jesse or something said something. Every gray hair I have on my head is from property management. It's not from REOs and real estate agents and all the rest of that, just landlords and tenants will just kill you. So we do a lot of property management.
So that was 50%, and then you took on all the REO stuff, and that grew to another whatever portion of business.
Yeah, I mean, just from a percentage of the business, it naturally shrank because so much of our business was then traditional sales. But we've never. Is anybody in the property management business in here? Very interesting business because we've been doing it for 28 years. It is I think this is going to be a great year. I completely agree with Beverly to the degree that I could hear everything you were saying on your economic update. I really think this is going to be a really, really good year across the board in real estate. Whether you're an agent, you're basically making a living in listing and selling houses, or if you're an investor on the mortgage side, whatever. I just see a lot of positive things going on in the business. However, that's all a wish, right? We just don't know. I own 5 real estate offices. I have no idea how much money I'm going to make next month. I have no idea how much money we're going to make in March, April, May, because those escrows aren't open, right? You know, somebody sneezes and those escrows. But I do know, I can tell you probably within $500 exactly how much money I'm going to make on my property management business this month. I can tell you how much I'm going to make in June. I can tell you how much I can make in July, because it's never gone down. For 28 years, that income it's a wonderful, wonderful business to be in. Pain in the ass, but a great business. So to the degree that you guys need some help, it sounds like the gentleman in the back with the one tenant moving to somewhere and the other one waiting for the sheriff. Maybe we could probably help you out with some of that too. So
that was I want to get into that in a little bit. There was a lesson you taught me about property management really, really early on that I never forgot. What's your day like now? What's your operation like? What's the company as a whole look like now?
Well, again, we're a Coldwell Banker franchise. I have 5 offices: Moreno Valley, Redlands, Claremont, Covina, and Santa Ana. That might sound like an odd location, but when you put it on a map, it tends to make sense. It's just kind of one nice big circle, mostly encompassing the Inland Empire. So probably about 35% of what we do right now is property management, but we've got 13 or so full-time people that deal with that on a regular basis, and the rest of it is I'm a traditional real estate shop. We've got about 260 agents now, and my day is basically promoting my company and similar to you guys out looking for deals to buy and flip or whatever you're looking for. I'm looking for agents. I'm here to recruit. Anybody want to get their real estate license, come see me. So my business model is that of a traditional broker owner. But again, we do a lot of property management. I own an escrow company with 4 locations. I'm a general contractor. We've got a maintenance company that does rehabs on our property management stuff and flips. So I got my hands in a part-time barber. I do all. So
that explains a haircut.
Yeah, we're busy. We're busy.
So I want to go back to, I won't spend too much time on this, but I try and go back to like old school stuff from way back when. You're a real estate family. Yeah. So without going through, I guess, the whole origin story, what's a really interesting and what's a memorable story related to real estate from when you were young or from your childhood?
Oh, geez. Well, I'm definitely a real estate family. My grandmother actually just passed away, 92 years old, but literally died with an active broker's license. And my mom and dad both have been in the family doing real estate. Myself, my wife, I worked side by side with my wife, if you guys can believe this, for 25 years in the office. She finally said enough of that nonsense and went out and did her own thing. But now my 2 boys are in the company as well. I don't know if I have one story. I mean, I just have grown up in the real estate business. I when I was a kid, and then a Saturday involved in jumping in the car with mom and, hey, we're going to go show property, or with grandma, whatever it happened to be. Same thing with my kids. Used to, they didn't know any different. It was expected. Hey, if we were going to Disneyland, they knew damn well there was 4 places to stop before we went to Disneyland, and they just realized, okay, that's just how it worked. They'd go to Disneyland with their friends, and they'd be like, well, how come their parents didn't stop and look at houses and yell at some guy and throw him out of the house and meet the sheriff and all the rest of the stories. So it's just what we do. It's what we do. It is. If you're not in the business in that regard, you'll never quite understand it. But it's I see a couple heads shaking up and down there. But you've got to enjoy this business. If you don't, it'll kill you. And the hours are ridiculous. And now with the technology being what it is, I mean, it's truly 24/7. It's crazy.
I'll remember that one. I'm like, I want to text Lance at 11 p.m. It's 24/7.
Yeah.
I'll say, I got a deal.
It is. And the chances are probably pretty good. If you text me at 11 o'clock or midnight, you'll probably get an answer back from me. I don't know. You might not like that answer. I got a call. Honestly, this is a true story. I got a call 2 nights ago, 1 o'clock in the morning, from ADT Security, okay, the alarm monitoring system. And I'm thinking, oh, crap, somebody's broken into one of my properties, or, awful. So I see it, and of course you got to pick it up, right? Because if I don't pick it up, false alarm charges and all the rest of it. So they call me. We're calling to tell you that we have an alert. Your battery is low. That's not the funny part. Would you please call us back in the morning to schedule an appointment for a service technician? And I'm really like, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Did you just call me to tell me to call you back at 8 o'clock in the morning? And they did. So at any rate.
So a lot of 50% of these people are kind of new to real estate. About 20% are active, or 30% are active, and 20% are fairly seasoned. For the new people, do you remember the first real estate deal you did?
Absolutely.
Everybody always does.
Remember like it was yesterday. 2465 McKinsey Boulevard, Long Beach, California, $260,000. That would have been 1987, August 27th. And that's no joke. I got my license. I got my license when I was 19. I started selling full-time January 1st, 1987. I got married 3 months later, okay? I'm now 20. Didn't close my first transaction until August 27th. I remember the date because it was 2 days before my birthday. 8 months in the business, basically just beating my head against the door. Had a great broker, a great mentor, who to this day every time I see him, I would not be in this business today if it wasn't for him. Because this is, by the way, the gentleman in the back, we were talking about getting your license. It's a tough business. Make no mistake about it. I mean, I just left the California Association of Realtors Board of Directors meeting to come here tonight. There are 187,000 licensed realtors in the state of California right now. 187,000. Now that's licensed realtors, meaning they have a license and they're paying their board dues and they're paying their MLS dues. The total license in the state right now, I think, is, someone may know the number.
It's like approaching
470,000 or something like that. But there's literally about 1,200 people a week right now that are taking their exam. So why do I tell you that? Because of the 187,000 realtors that are paying their dues, half of them don't make a dime, literally zero. Another 20% will close maybe 1 or 2 deals a year. And then there's literally only about 30% of the agents that are licensed and paying their dues that actually make a living. And I'll qualify that as a basic living, maybe $40,000, $50,000 a year, which most of us, I would think, we're probably not in the room here to make $40,000. We could go make more money delivering UPS packages, I would assume. So
that's real data, by the way. Lance uses. Do you still use broker metrics?
Every day.
So broker metrics, if you're in the service industry and you're trying to service agents, is just an amazing. Still $150 a month.
Well, I'm spending almost $600, but I got a few more whistles and bells that were since you and I talked last.
Yeah.
So
I stole this platform from him because it's amazing. That's real data on what real estate agents do. I think I remember pulling data on the Inland Empire. It said there were 4,000 agents out of the 43,000 licensed that were actually doing above 10 transactions a year.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, that's about the number. So
Yeah, well, there's 36,000 agents in the Inland Empire, basically CRMLS, and if you run the data for last year, there's 15% of them that close more than 2 transactions. I mean, it's pretty sad. There's 50% close nothing. And I don't mean a month, I mean a year. Close no transactions in a year. And then about another 30% will close, 1, maybe 2 transactions. And, the real money's being made. In this business, it's the 80-10 rule. 80% of the business is done by 20, or did I say 80-10? 80-20. 80% of the business is done by 20% of the agents. That's been around forever. Well, that's bullshit. It's literally 90% of the business is done by 10% of the agents. And then within that 10%, there's
it's pretty skewed.
it's pretty skewed, yeah.
I remember seeing the numbers before, and it was like 1,500 of those 4,000 did over 40 deals, and the people who did 100 plus was like 20 to 40. It was like it was like 1%.
Yeah, but you made me think of something, and I would assume most of you in this room, if you don't have the same mindset, you probably, if you take anything away from this, this is probably at least one of the takeaways I would say is, you asked me kind of how do I spend my day, what am I doing these days? The reality is I spend my day just looking at data. I mean, I'm constantly looking at data. I mean, I see, Beverly up here doing her stuff and some of the stuff that her original content, and then John Husing stuff and Chris Thornburg. 3 times a year I look at CAR stuff. Sometimes I throw it away. It's funny. Chris Thornburg is one of our speakers who's going to be speaking at our market forecast on March 9th. Well, I spent $500 to go see him and a few other people speak at Rio Mac in the desert. He's literally speaking 2 days before our conference, but I'm spending $500 because I'm just looking for that nugget. I'm sitting in a room just like you guys are. I'm waiting for a chart. I'm waiting for something to fall on the floor. I'm saying, okay, how is that going to impact my business plan? So literally 90% of my day is spent looking at data and figuring out, that Wayne Gretzky thing, don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where the puck's going to be, whatever it happens to be. If you're going to be successful in this business, especially with what I think, this is my first time here. I don't know anything about you guys other than I know Stephen and Todd, and I generally know the idea of the investment club. So I'm assuming most of you are looking for investments to flip or long-term holds and all the rest of that. Well, you better have some data in front of you, or you're going to get creamed. Because there's a lot of people out there that are currently getting creamed and have been creamed because they're just making bad decisions. So it's all about the data, whether it's broker metrics or MLS access or just conference places like this where you can come and see, hey, what's going on, and then test Beverly's stuff. I happen to agree with, I think, everything Beverly put on the chart, but even if I think you walk on water, I'm testing it. What else is out there to support or basically counterdict what you're putting on the screens? Right. What you were talking about, you're taking a swipe at somebody charging $30,000 to do this. I literally, probably for the last 15 years, have spent at least $30,000 to $60,000 a year traveling to conferences just to gather information. Some of these conferences are $2,000-3,000, and sometimes they're a dud. But I'm just looking for stuff. I'm trying to figure out, when's that next REO cycle coming? Where are we at? I'll just give you an interesting stat, which I'm curious if anybody realizes this, because you've got to pay attention to this stuff a lot. I'm assuming the name of the club is Inland Empire, so I'm assuming most of you Inland Empire, right? Okay. Yeah. Anybody have any idea how many houses were for sale on November 1st in the Inland Empire? And I will define Inland Empire as CRMLS, okay? So most of the MLS system, assuming you guys know where that is. Anybody want to take a stab on what that number is?
I'm going to ballpark it at 4,000.
It's about 51,000 properties.
51,000.
There's 51,000. These are all property types. They were on the market active on November 1st. Okay, 51,000. We want to know what that, take a stab at what that number was on January 1st? About 39,000.
Wow.
It's over 20% decrease in properties, active listings in 60 days. We have a hand in the back. Yes. Sure, sure. Well, but again, that's why I kind of I use that as to make the point with what does that mean? Okay, I mean, the number itself is meaningless. We can also, oh my gosh, what does that mean? Well, you'll compare it to 2014, compare it to 2013, compare it to 20, and you always tend to see that pullback. Basically, people that say, okay, honey, let's wait till after, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we'll put our property back on the market. But it's never been 20%. I mean, as far back as I can go, I've never seen a 20%, 6%, 7%, 8% people pull back, and that's to be expected. But it was about a 21% pullback in listings.
Wow.
Now, another little data. Now, this is another thing why I love the fact that I own the real estate offices, and I've got 5 of them in 5 different locations, and I've got 260 agents. So I've got not only the data, which Beverly and I will look at, we'll throw on the board, but that can be a little stale. I mean, it's a month old, it's 6 months old. Well, man, I've got data like today, okay? And we can talk about this a little bit more, but one thing that really, really excites me about 2016 is we have a new cycle of inventory that we're personally working on. We have some hedge fund clients that we've done business with and basically sold them many properties in the past. And some of those folks think today is a good time to sell, okay? And they're putting those properties on the market. Depending upon what your analysis of the data is, you might say, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. If they're selling, maybe I should sell. If you come to the market forecast and you listen to Chris Thornburg, these people are not listening to Chris Thornburg, because Chris Thornburg says property values for the next 5 years are going to be going up, okay, and not at the slow rate that we've currently seen. We've seen a very, very slow rate of increase in property values over the last couple of years. Well, Chris, who's a hell of a lot smarter than I am, says, hey, you just put your seatbelt on, baby, because property values are going to go up. So obviously these hedge fund guys are not listening to Chris because they're selling today, as opposed to others who have bought and are continuing to hold. So I tell that story because we've got about 18 properties that we just put on the market for a particular client. It'll be 2 weeks tomorrow, okay? 18 properties in the last 2 weeks. We expect that number to be a lot bigger than that. But this is the interesting part. This is the data part, which I don't know what it means exactly yet, but it puts a smile on my face, is in the last 2 weeks, we've got about 10, 11 offers on 5 of those properties. A couple of them have multiple offers, but basically, on 5 of the houses out of the 18, we've got 10 offers. 9 of the 10, are you ready? Here it comes. 9 of the 10, those buyers are contingent upon selling their other house.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. Now, if you're just a pure listing agent, you hate that. It's like, crap, you kidding me? Your offer is not getting accepted, buddy. I'm sorry. You sell your house first, you close it, then you come see me. I've only been on the market 10 days. We don't want to accept a contingent offer. And all of that is true. But that's not what excites me. What excites me is that is new data. That was not the case 8 months ago. Certainly wasn't the case 12 months ago or 24 months ago. So in other words, the people that were selling their house 6 months ago or 8 months ago or 24 months ago, the vast majority of those people were not looking to buy another house in the Inland Empire. They were doing something different. And many of them, obviously from 2008 to 2014 or 15, they were not in any position to buy anything. They're lucky to be able to rent a house from me because their credit's so beat up and all the rest of that sort of stuff. So I'm really, really excited from just an overall optimistic environment in the real estate market, the consumers feel better about it.
That's that move-up buyer, right? I mean,
It's the move-up buyer.
Yeah.
It's
and that's the missing piece we've been missing for the last almost decade. Is
Right.
the move-up buyer.
Right, and you said, guys, most of you, I'm sure, know Bruce Norris or heard Bruce. Like he spoke here a couple of months ago. That's something that Bruce has been saying for a long time. We're missing that move-up buyer. You know, we're missing a transaction. And if you're in my business, because I'm in the transaction business, okay. I mean, I love it when property values go up, but I make money by selling units.
It's two transactions per
prices
file.
are right. Prices help because commissions are higher, and unit sales help. You know, you sell more. But we've been selling one.
Yeah.
Now it looks like we might be selling two.
Now you can actually chase the money.
Or Jesse and I were talking earlier, and says, well, it's not just a two-fer, it could be a three-fer or a four-fer, depending upon how many legs you got in that transaction. So just from a sheer data standpoint, that excites me to no end. Do we have some inventory issues? Like, well, maybe, but it's pretty. It feels good. I haven't said that in a long time. It's been a crappy several years, guys.
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about. You're like, it's good. What's up, Carl?
Questions out there? I didn't catch. You said who versus Chris Thornburg? Who? Oh, well, yeah, potentially. You got to remember the folks that I was working with, and I'm still working with, they came in with a very specific, goal. They were going to buy, hold for 3 to 5 years, and then liquidate. But they're also looking for, the Wall Street guys, they need returns, baby.
Mm-hmm.
They're not happy with a 1% or a 2% return. And then there's that whole segment of, it's a heck of a lot different to buy a company or sell a company as opposed to buying a house with a tenant and dealing with evictions and leaky hot water heaters and management companies and all the rest of that nonsense. So even though I think the returns for many of you in this room are certainly well enough to say I'm going to hold, they feel like they've kind of run that out a little bit and it's not enough. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the stock market. I mean, it was funny.
Happy fundraising day in real estate, by the way.
Well, yeah, but it's crazy with the market being what it is that, I was watching CNBC. Anybody watch CNBC in the morning? Kramer and all those guys? Okay.
Yeah,
one person?
You're dealing with a TV
Are you guys
in your
awake,
office.
or is only one of you watch CNBC in the morning? Does nobody in here watch the market in the morning?
I don't want to watch Jim Cramer. I want
4
to make
of you?
smart decisions.
Well, Kramer, I don't know if he's the right example, but you might want to start paying attention to that sort of stuff. It might be something you might be interested in. But they literally, this was like Thursday of last week. I think we're going into a depression. We're in another recession. And I'm thinking, what do you mean we're going into another? We haven't even got out of the last recession, for God's sakes. I mean, it just kindly now feels like. But again, that just goes to show you the disconnect between the Wall Street mentality and what we're doing here, specifically in the Empire. There's a complete disconnect in what they do as opposed to what we do on a daily basis.
Do you remember when you got approached? I remember when Lance was outbidding me on properties I was trying to acquire for another hedge fund. Do you remember when you got approached by the hedge funds? And did they send you a metric, like a "this is how we buy" sheet?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you remember what the specific yield was, and they had like an exit strategy attached?
Well, the exit strategy was, again, buy and hold 3 to 5 years. The initial yield, when most, by the way, the guys I work with came a little bit later into the party, but the initial yield, they wanted if you didn't get them a 7.5% cap rate, you weren't buying, okay? It went 7.5 to 8%. Mm-hmm. Now that cap rate started shrinking very, very quickly. And then it was like, hey, well, we won't buy anything under a 7. Well, okay, 3 months later, well, you ain't buying anything then. Okay, well, how about a 6.5? Well, we can get you a 6.5. Well, 3 months later, you're not buying anything. So we bought all the way down to about a 5.5% cap rate and stopped. And quite honestly, they probably wish they hadn't stopped.
Yeah.
Because they should have continued to buy because there was a lot of money left on the table. But depending upon who they were, I mean, most of those have seen a 100% return on their money in 3 years, which is why they're selling now, at least why they're talking about potentially selling. Yeah.
I had a question back to the
Yes. Well, I don't know yet, but I didn't. Thank you for bringing me back to that, because there's always the rest of the story. Well, today's January 27th, right? Okay. Well, I don't know the exact number. I'll know it in a couple of days, because I always run my numbers at the end of the month. But there's been a lot of new inventory that's hit the market. I just put 18 properties on the market from a hedge fund in the last 10 days, okay? A lot of those sellers that were, hey, I think we're gonna hold off until after the holidays, those folks are coming back to the market. So I expect to see that backfill of inventory fairly quickly. But again, it's too early. I don't know if I made the point I was trying to make. You've gotta look at the data. You know, as much as I look at the same stuff that Beverly had on here, that's great, but that stuff's old. And our market turns so quickly. So I mean, I'm not here for the reason you guys think I'm here. I mean, you know, I'm a friend of Stephen and Todd, and they said, hey, would you come out and speak? And I'm like, okay, sure. So I'm getting the gauge of this room. I want to see what's happening in here, because you guys are part of my data points. You know, apparently this is the largest crowd you've had. Ever? Okay.
Apparently you're important.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, so, but what's going on here? How do you guys feel? I'm going to sit back and just kind of observe you. Who's nervous? Who's happy? Who's excited? What's going on? And I gauge that. That's a big market indicator for me. Constantly collecting that kind of data.
Yeah, it's been, I mean, as long as I've known you, it's kind of been that way. And I, you know, to the tune of the hedge fund exits, you know, we saw some of it when I was working with Pintar. I forget the name of the fund that you were acquiring for, but they all kind of had the same model.
That's good.
I remember, if I look it up, I'm not going to announce it here.
No, we're not going to make names.
Yeah, I'm not going to call it. But anyway, I know, but anyway, I was trying to let go. So.
That's that one. I said you can ask me anything, but
yeah, you won't call the name out.
About that.
So
don't ask me who my clients are.
So he said no questions are off limits except for a couple. I hit one. So I remember they were looking at their annual yields, and they were looking at their year over year based on their equity piece, the amount they borrow from investors, and their debt piece, the amount they borrow nationally. And what happened is when they hit that margin at the bottom of their blended yield, that sub 7% margin, which in my case they stopped at 4% because they had a blended 6% yield for the fund I was acquiring for, they had to make an exit, so they had to sell in order to get the yield for their investor. So an exit doesn't necessarily mean a market panic in their case. It means that they looked at their annual year-over-year yield versus like expenses based on the way they rehab their properties and what their turnover is. And they said, in order to make our investors happy, we have to see a yield of X. So we have to sell 10% of our properties to make sure our yield makes our investors happy. And it's funny because that data will throw everything off because like the funds are selling, but the fund selling has nothing to do with market time. It has to do with their bonuses and whether or not they're going to receive what they set out to receive based on the waterfall returns.
That's absolutely correct, and you explained it perfectly. And if you didn't understand what Stephen said, then you need to catch him afterwards, because that's exactly right. Because in their cases, and again, you know, Beverly had the chart of property values in the Inland Empire for the last 18 months, flat, more or less flat, 1%, 2%, you know, depending on, there's certain pockets that have done better, but that hurts their portfolio.
Yeah.
Because when you were seeing, you know, 12% appreciation in 30 days and 45% appreciation over 6 months, and then you've seen, you know, 1.5% appreciation in the third quarter of 2015, they don't like that, because that just makes the overall decision look that much less attractive. But again, that's the point that the gentleman made in the back is it's a different animal. You can't compare what they're doing to what you guys are doing.
Did anybody see The Big Short? Anybody see The Big Short? Do you remember the moment where he's sitting in the office and his investors are calling him every day to tell him he's wrong? That's what happens, these hedge funds. They call them and tell them they're stupid based on the reports, and somebody's got to make a selling decision to make those people happy so they don't get yelled at anymore. So that's kind of how their decision process goes.
Yeah. I'll give you my little forecast and try to tie it into what's happened in the past, if that makes sense, my forecast into the past. Everybody remembers where they were September 11th, 2001, right? Okay. Well, I was water skiing at Lake Paris, and listened to the radio, listened to Bill Handel, and, you know, at the time, nobody really knew. A small plane flies into the Trade Center, whatever, 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was. So I go water skiing, get back in the car, and then, oh, geez, things are a lot worse than the little plane flying into the building. So at any rate, I went home, took a shower, went into my office, had a little TV, same office that Stephen was talking about, a little TV in the corner. And basically for the next 4 days, I sat in my office just looking at the TV. And it had I almost had a panic. I don't know if I've ever had a panic attack in my life, but if I did, that was probably the closest thing to it. And the reason I was panicking was because I had just bought the company. I bought my parents out of the company. They were retired. They retired in June of 2001, so this is 3 months later. And I had been feeling, up to September 11th, I had been feeling that the real estate market was finally getting its sea legs back. Because we had that foreclosure cycle, nothing like the one we just went through, but we had had that cycle in 95 and 6 and 7, and it was like, oh man, finally we're doing well, and then damn, we've got this national disaster on our hands. And I'm being very selfish, and I'm thinking this is going to destroy the real estate market, it's going to destroy my business, and the world's coming to an end. And I literally sat there for 4 days and just freaked out. Now, my analysis of what was going to happen could not have been more wrong, because what happened in 2002, 3, 4, 5, and 6, at least as it relates to real estate? It was puppy dogs and rainbows, and if you were selling real estate or buying real estate, it was a wonderful time. Now, we can talk about the buildup and the overinflation and all the rest of that sort of stuff. But the reason I'm trying to make that point is I was looking at data and made an entirely wrong assessment of what the market did. I mean, if someone had come to me at that time and said, I'll give you $20 for your real estate company, I probably would have said, thank you. Okay? And that would have been a bad decision. Okay? Now, again, we kind of went crazy, and then, of course, we had the correction and the collapse. So where are we today? And again, I don't know what the stock market's going to do. I mean, we've seen a slight correction here in the last few months, and China's got all of its nonsense going on. But I think if you want to compare 2016 to the early 2000s, I think this is like 2002.
Totally agree. Totally
So,
agree.
in other words, 2003 was better than 2002, and 2004 was better than 2003, and da-da-da-da. I think 2016 is 2002. I think we're going to have a great year. I think next year is going to be nice. I think the following year is going to be nice. If you come to my market forecast, unless Chris has changed his opinion, Chris Thornburg is super, super bullish on the real estate market through 2020. Okay, now I don't know how the hell you can project anything out 5 years from now, but this guy is like, values are going to go up for the next 5 years. Unit sales are going to go up for the next. And I don't mean his chart does not show a 2 or 3% appreciation year over year. He's got ridiculous amounts of appreciation. Now, if it was anybody other than Chris Thornburg, I would say it's ridiculous amount of appreciation. You're crazy to think that. But for those of you that know Chris and have followed Chris, well, he's
sharp, dude.
He's the guy,
yeah.
And he's the one who called this stuff. So it's very, very optimistic out there.
Feels
good.
I really like if you can make it to the market forecast. By all means, if you can just hear him talk. I watched a panel with him tear apart state, federal, and local legislature, and it was amazing just to watch him tell them all how wrong they were.
Right.
Does anybody? I have a bunch of questions, but I'm not gonna get to all of them. Does anybody mind if I go like 10 minutes over 9? Okay, great. Do you mind if I go 10 minutes past?
How much are we getting paid to do this tonight?
0.
Oh, in that case, so you're double my pay, I'll stay. No problem.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll double your pay.
I got nowhere to go. I just have to drive back to Anaheim. No big deal.
Anaheim?
No. At the CER meetings. I got a meeting tomorrow at 8. That's why I'd love to hang with you guys at the presidential
I'm like,
bar.
you're so close. You live so close.
I know. But yeah, I got nothing but time. It's all good.
Okay, so because the audience is 50% new, because we just went like high level, let's go back down to day to day. When I walked into your office, every time I pushed my way in there and you told me to get out, that didn't really happen. You always had a book in your little accordion, something you were reading. What book have you either given away the most or recommended the most to other people?
And it's not a new book, but a book that I read a lot is The Blue Ocean Strategy.
Oh,
Have you guys seen that one?
yeah.
It's a great book. I can't remember the name of the author, but I really, really like The Blue Ocean Strategy. Matter of fact, we have a club. It's a lot smaller than this club of kind of broker owners that we actually named it the Blue Ocean Group after that book. So I would recommend you guys take a look at that book.
You don't have
It's not a real estate book, by the way. It's just it's a great book. It's more of an economic book. It's kind of dry, but
You don't have to say yes because we're in front of an audience, but can I come to that?
Come to what?
Your broker
No.
meeting? Oh, okay.
No, actually, you want to come because our next meeting is in Cabo. We meet twice a year. We try to have fun and go to kind of some exotic places. It's a closed group though.
That's fine. I just
But
asked.
that's okay. But we can do lunch afterwards and talk.
I'll push
about
my
it.
way in. I'll push my way into anything you're doing. I'm not shy. Okay, so you talked about role models.
Pardon me?
You talked about role models.
Yep.
Your role models. So, I was going to ask who are some role models you've had? Was your first broker a major role model?
Yeah, my first broker. I can actually start crying if I tell this story. I would not be in this business if it wasn't for which, by the way, my family, you guys, if you remember the beginning, my mom was in the business, my dad's in the business, my grandma, they were not my first broker. They kind of wanted nothing to do with me in the beginning. It was like, okay, if you want to do this, you go somewhere else, and if you still like it, then maybe we can do the family business. But my first broker, I was with them for 8 months. Okay, this is the part that might not make sense. It was a broker in Cerritos. I worked with him from January 1st, 1987 to September 15th, 1987, so eight and a half months. If you remember the story, I only closed the one escrow, right? I closed my first deal, was just beat to death, and then basically moved from the Cerritos, Long Beach area out here to the Inland Empire, and then started selling out here. But literally everything that he taught me during that 8 months gave me the foundation to move forward. And, mom and dad didn't help or didn't hurt either because, when you're a young kid and you haven't sold a house in 6 months, a few $1,000 here and there doesn't hurt. He probably had the largest influence, but it's basic stuff, guys. It's just basic stuff. You got to get in the game. You got to get up every day, put your game face on, fake it till you make it, all that stuff that we've all heard 1,000 times. It's nothing more complicated than that. You were talking earlier, or I think Jesse or someone was saying, hey, you've just got 17 people just calling all day for deals. You want to be successful in this business, it's not really much more complicated than that. Pick up the phone, start calling people, and it doesn't matter whether you're a real estate agent looking for buyers or sellers or whether you're an investor looking for deals to buy. If you do nothing other than just dial for dollars. Hello, this is Lance, a Coldwell Banker Pioneer Real Estate. Anybody who wants to buy or sell? Click. This is Lance Martin, a Coldwell Bank. If you do that enough, it doesn't really matter what your presentation is or how you say it. Somebody ultimately is going to say yes. But most of us don't do that.
So I at your office, Lance would force you into a business planning meeting with him or the manager, so you actually did something with your day. And that was one of the biggest takeaways I took from working at your office. And anybody that's been here that's coming to my free business planning meetings, I give this away now because of you, will kind of get an idea of what I do and force you to create a calendar. Just that you have to do this every day, follow that routine. If you follow that routine, eventually it'll happen. You'll screw your way up all the way until you get to success. Like that was a huge fundamental change for the way I did business. And I think if anybody can get anything out of that, it's set a calendar, follow the calendar, create a plan, and at the end of the year, review it again, and then change it again.
Yeah. I get. I have a lot of stuff going on. Again, the agents, the offices, the escrow companies, all that sort of stuff, and I constantly get asked, "Oh, Lance, how do you do it? I don't know how you do it." And I have basically a one-word answer, and the answer is gold mine. Okay. Does anybody know what gold mine contact management software is? Okay. Anybody use any sort of contact management software? Well, insert whatever contact management software you're using for the word goldmine. That's how I do it. I live I live in my contact management system. I have 36 people on my payroll, not in addition to the agents. And if you were to call me today, and I'm not available, and if my assistant, what's your name? Thomas? Said Thomas called. Call him at 951 blah blah blah, and they put that on a Post-it note, and they put that on my desk. They would get fired. Okay. You're not allowed to do that. Everything I do has to get into an electronic contact management system. Phone calls, actions calls. If it says, hey, you're going to call people today from 2 to 4, then you call people today from 2 to 4. And I think what I do in my business will translate to any business. But again, very, very, very few people have the discipline to do that.
Yours is intense too. Your gold mine is
I'm ridiculous.
Insane.
I'm pretty anal.
How big? What do you get? Like 40,000 people in your database now?
I've got 82,000 people in my database. And if any of you guys come to my market forecast, you will be in my database forever. Okay? You give me most of us, you have a meeting like this, and you grab half a dozen cards, or you put some stuff on a Post-it note, you put it in your pocket, you go home, you take it out, you put it on the thing, it ends up in the laundry, it ends up in the trash. You put a note on, I gotta call this guy tomorrow, he's a hot deal. It doesn't happen, guys. I mean, I've done that. And I've gone to the car wash, and 6 months later, looked underneath the seat of my car and said, shit! I was supposed to call that guy. Okay. Right? You guys relate to that?
Yeah, everybody can.
Okay. So I really try to get everything in my system. That doesn't mean I call everybody I'm supposed to every day, but the nice part about that is it's in my contact management system. If I don't call you today, it's staring me in the face tomorrow. It's not hiding underneath the seat of my car, or it's not accidentally washing itself in the wash machine.
Yeah.
So
if you
big deal.
if you don't want to opt into Goldmine, which costs thousands of dollars to set up, and Lance's system is insane.
Yeah, I use Outlook and Google Docs. It's great.
Yeah, there's a program that's really cheap called Pipedrive. It's PIPEDRIV, Pipedrive. Amazing platform, super cheap, easy to get started, and it's all based on individual assets, and you follow the deal all the way along. Where do I want to go next? Okay, so speaking of role models, you've trained a lot of people. You train a lot. You said you're doing a lot of you're giving a lot of training now.
We do a lot. Yeah, we train a lot.
So this is Jim Keller asked me this. He wanted me to ask you, is there anybody you can think of, or several people you can think of, or examples you can think of people that you've trained that you were just amazed by what they came in at and what the output was?
Yeah, I mean, I've got several agents in my office now that are relatively new to the business that are, closing 100 deals a year now.
Wow.
Now, I don't know that I can take full credit for that. I mean, that's the X factor. I mean, I'll sit down. Thomas will come into my office as a new agent, and I'll look at him and I say, man, this guy's got everything. He's got the personality, and he's good looking, and he's just got the drive, and I just love this guy to death. And I'll hire you, and you'll fall flat on your butt, And then, someone else will come in, and I'll go, oh my God, really? All right, I'll take a flyer on you. And man, they've got that thing. They just got that juice or that drive or the discipline or whatever it is. So I think maybe I'd like to think that I kind of brought that out of a few people and said, hey, you're better than this. You can do this. But to me, it's all about discipline. And no matter what you're doing, you have to have discipline in this business to stick to a business plan.
Yeah.
Anybody here have a business plan? If you don't have a business plan, it doesn't have to be 60 pages, but you got to have something. Okay, you got to have something. You got to know where you're going and all the rest of that sort of stuff, and you got to work it.
Yep.
And I've been doing this. I'm 49. I was going to say 59. Whew. I'm 49. I got my license when I was 19. I've done nothing else. I've done this for 30 years. And I ran a successful business for the first 15 years. I didn't have a business plan. I'd sit in a room like this, and who's got a business plan? I got a business plan. Well, that was nonsense. I didn't have a business plan. I mean, I had a general idea of what I wanted to do, and I lied to myself and said I had a plan. Well, it was about 15 years ago, which ironically, remember what was 15 years ago? September 11th, 2001. During those 4 days of watching, all hell break loose and crying and being depressed, I said, well, geez, I need a plan. What am I going to do? And the business plan I have today is literally, it started on September 13th, 2011. It's literally the same plan. If you go into Microsoft Word and you look at it, that document was created September 13th.
Really?
Yeah, of 2000, September 13th, 2001, and it's just been modified and modified and modified for the last 15 years.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Another thing, a little trick that I do, I don't know if you guys will find this interesting or not, the notes that I have from 2001 are still there. I'll make a little prediction, things are going to be terrible, and then the following 6 months, then I'll write, okay, well, I missed that one, and then I'll put what it was. So I've got, I got like 15 years of notes and a lot of bad decisions, to be honest with you. Just a lot of bad stuff, but
that's why I wanted to bring you here is one of the things I've always admired about you is the systems you create. You're a systems guy, and you follow the system, and it's one of the things I learned working in your office, but it's something very few people have, and no matter how much I press it upon people, and you do, and it seems like very few people kind of move into that role. I literally am like, well, if I could bring Lance in, maybe he can tell all these people the same thing I've been telling for a while, that set up a system. So when I was first coming in your office, you said, set up the property management and you never have to worry about keeping the lights on,
Yep.
Ironically, because the lights got shut off of where I was. In real estate investments, the idea is cash flow. Set up cash flow investments, and you'll never have to worry about keeping lights on. There'll always be food in the fridge. Did it dramatically change the way you make decisions when the cash flow started covering the overhead?
oh yeah, it's comfortable. It just feels good to know that you don't have to sell a house and you can still pay your bills, which again is, I'm assuming for many of you in this room, that's kind of the long-term and short-term goal.
Yeah.
You want to have your investments basically do what they're supposed to do. They're generating enough positive cash flow to take care of business and fund your lifestyle. And it's a nice feel. Now, full disclosure, that's the more you make, the more you spend.
Yeah.
Okay, so geez, I should have stopped spending a long time ago, right? But yeah, it's a good feeling, and it does. You tend to be more. You tend to say no more. That's what I've discovered. I used to say yes to everything. Okay, you want to sell your house? Yeah, I'll sell your house. You want to do this? Yeah, I'll do that. Well, when you've got clients that are generating money and you're doing okay, you can be a little bit more selective. Which is nice, which is important as well in your guys' business. I got a horror story, which I won't bore you with, but it's probably a perfect story for this room. One of our colleagues, won't remain nameless, who said, hey, I'm going to go out and start buying and flipping. Well, he goes out and does his first buy and flip and didn't do his homework. Everything looked good. Too good to be true, right? Too good to be true. And he's 9 months into what he thought was going to be a 3-month flip, and he still has permit issues. There's no money left in this deal.
Wow.
But the thing was, it's just, and he's better than that, but he didn't do his homework.
Well, you can call me. I'll find a way to fix it.
Well, if you can fix permit issues with the city on demolitions on half-constructed properties and a variety of it's just bad news.
It's super interesting.
Yeah, but hopefully he'll learn from his mistake. He'll burn about $90,000 and yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's a tough lesson.
Yeah.
So how are we doing on time? All right, we got 5 minutes. I'll try and wrap this thing up. So relationships, I talked about networking relationships. You said you spend $30,000 to $60,000 a year.
Yep.
On events.
Yep.
I remember in 2008, you came back. I think we had like 12 people sitting in a little bullpen in the office as it grew. And we were taking 100 calls a day on the bat phone, which
Yep.
the bat phone was the phone that it was assumed read, and if you didn't answer it, you're fired. In other words, answer every call. He now has people that do this. But I remember we tried to answer every single call we
Yeah.
possibly could. It was nuts.
Yeah, we had when you have 400 signs in the yard, and everybody wants it. You could have had the best if you were not a foreclosure, and you were just Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner with the best house for the best price in the best neighborhood. Nobody wanted your house because everyone wanted a foreclosure because those were the deals, right? So we put a sign in the yard with basically a foreclosure sign on it, and the house across the street didn't have the foreclosure sign on it, and nobody would call that. So nobody cared about it because that couldn't be a good deal. Everyone had to get the deal, which just drove me crazy. Our phone rang off the hook. We get 100 calls a day was was a slow day.
And we had like the calendar, and like then it became 2 phones, and there were 2 signs. It was this whole crazy system. But during that time, you were still concerned about getting more Oreo business. You were like, I'm going to grow it.
Even though I said I learned to say no a little bit more, that's not exactly true.
He's like, I'm paying $200,000 in utility bills. I'm going to go to a conference to get more business. So I was like, well, what do you do at these conferences? And he's like, well, I'm going to Oreo Mac, and I'm going to listen to people speak. I'm like, all right, well, I mean, do you meet people? He's like, no, I go to the bar afterwards and talk to them, and that's where the deals are made. And he's like, it's all about relationships. Like, the whole day in the conference, I could have just sat in the bar. And I'll never forget that, because that's kind of what I tell people at these meetings now. We used to go to 16 of these a month, and all these investment clubs throughout Southern California. And we make all our money in the bar after hours, from 9 till close. So tonight, we're going to the bar after the meeting. See that? I brought it all together. We're going to the bar. I don't know if Lance is going to the bar because he's got to go to Anaheim. But we're going to the bar, and if you want to come down there and hang out with us, we'll be there. Do you have we mentioned a couple times, do you have your market forecast?
Yes.
I think I have the domain name. It's
2016marketforecast.com.
If you go on there and you can sign up to go and register and all that nonsense.
Yeah, and there's some postcards in the back. I texted my assistant. I don't know if she texted me back. Let's see. She did. Okay, so isn't that great?
It's like right there.
9 o'clock at night, and well, actually 8:30, and she texted me back. Okay, this is the deal. The market forecast is $100. Okay, I charge $100 because I just want to know. I figure if someone pays a few bucks, they'll actually show up. So you guys can go for free, okay? But you got to promise me you're going to show up, okay? So this is the deal. You can go, the address is on the postcard in the back, or you can go to 2016marketforecast.com. The registration link is there. There is the code, you give the promo code. Type in Hotwell Banker as opposed to Coldwell Banker. Type in Hotwell Banker as the promo code, and that basically gets you a free ticket.
I didn't expect that. I really appreciate that.
However, please show up. We're looking for about 400 to 500 people at this thing, and if there's 100 people in the room, and if you all say you're going to show up and you don't show up, it just pisses me off.
If you're going to go, I'll make it more pressing. If you're going to go, and you're from out here, you can all meet at our office before the meeting. We're going to go. So just come to our office downtown, and we'll all carpool together if that's an issue, or follow each other out there. If I find out that you RSVP'd and you didn't go, I'm coming after you. Because I really appreciate it. I didn't expect you to do that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, and I'll know who you are. Because when you register, you got to give us a name and an email and a phone number, and then we'll kind of match that up with who shows up and who doesn't, and then I'll come hunt you down and
forever in the database.
Beat $100 out of you.
You'll get nasty emails for a decade.
It's a great event. We've been doing it again 5 or 6 years, and it's a great event.
It's really, seriously, it's worth going. It's Coldwell Banker with an H. Worth it.
It's March 9th. It's at the Doubletree in Ontario, right by the airport, Exit Vineyard. And March 9th, registration's from 8 to 9. If you register online, which you all need to, don't get there at 8 unless you just, get there at 8. Walk around, do your networking and all the rest of that. But the event starts at 9. Bruce Norris is going to be on for about 45 minutes. John Husine, Chris Thornburg. Anybody know the name Ido Benzivi?
Yeah, is he coming?
Okay. Ido's going to be there for 15 or so minutes. Ido's an interesting cat.
Is he promoting this whole...
We're just going to talk a little bit about what's going on economically. Ido's probably one of the most successful, richest landowners in the Inland Empire. He's got some good stuff going on, so he's going to give us a little update.
Oh, sweet.
And then I'll do my 2 cents worth as well. I'll kind of give my version of what Beverly did earlier. So it's a great event. It's a great event.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming out.
Thank you for having me, buddy.
To give Lance an applause. Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.